Good afternoon. So this is our 416 Development and Growth 2, and this is our last lecture. And in this last lecture, our topic is culture. We want to focus on the issues of how culture affects economic outcomes, especially the long-run economic growth through different mechanisms and different channels. And we also want to talk about how culture evolves, actually, right? So culture is something that evolves very slowly, as in the case of institutions, and it actually interacts with the set of formal and informal institutions in the society, in a particular society, in a particular history. But we want to talk about this cultural evolution as well, because that is something also very important. So I'm going to start with some definitions, if you like. So so the overall framework, if I recall, is this, right? So there's geography on one side, and there's institutions and culture, and we believe sort of that institutions and culture actually co-evolve. So if this is geography, this is institutions, this is culture, right? So geography will have some effect on culture. So if you compare, for instance, Northern Europe and Southern Europe, you will see certain cultural differences, right? Or if you compare countries in sub-Saharan Africa versus countries in much milder climates, you will see certain differences. The location of the mountains, the rainfall, and all of these, the elevation. I think I earlier spoke about how the elevation of a country can actually affect the fertility preferences, right? So this is called the Hajnal effect. Now, we already covered geography, we already covered institutions. Now, today, we're going to talk about culture. And there is also this much larger view of genes, right? So, and some economists actually, and some other social scientists, study gene-culture co-evolution as well, right? So, obviously, biological evolution takes much longer than cultural evolution, okay? And cultural evolution is possibly longer than institutional evolution, all right? So here we have institutional changes or institutional evolution. And then in much shorter horizons, we have political change, okay? And those changes through the interaction with institutional evolution and the determination of de facto and de jure political power, of course, affect economic outcomes. Okay, so obviously we're not going to talk about the biological evolution, right? And we already covered those type of mechanisms, but today we want to focus on our attention to culture. So culture is defined by a couple of things. One is the belief systems in the society. Okay, so that includes, of course, religion. Okay, now one thing is that. The other thing is traditions, customs, norms, etc. Right? So these are sometimes described as informal institutions, and some of these are could be thought of in this way, but more generally, the correct terminology would be culture. So there are certain traditions and certain customs and certain social and cultural norms that are passed across generations, right? From one generation to the next. Parents socialize their kids according to their own values, right? So in general, you may you may call them values, right? So these values matter. So first, parents socialize their kids according to their own values. Then, if there's a public education system, and in most countries there is one such system. So in the public education system, there is this ideological effect of the state, right? So there are certain things that in the education system the state would actually impose in terms of uh, intellectual or ideological uh, domination for such purposes, right? For such ideological or nationalistic uh, purposes. And then the kid goes to college and then meets with other people from other regions of the society, other educational or cultural backgrounds. So then there is this exchange of cultural values within this young group of people, and then when the aging of the person continues, that person engages in job market activities, pursues a profession, meet other people, meet internationals, uh, keeps learning and keeps being exposed to other norms and values, and you know throughout this process, of course, he or she actually evolves. So her or his cultural system actually changes. Now, another thing, if you want to, be even more specific, there are certain things that we use to define uh, culture as economists, right? So this is much more. Remember the preferences of agents, right? So agents have certain preferences, right? So suppose that this is the preferences of agent I. So according to this preference relationship, right? Agent I weakly prefers bundle X to bundle Y, right? So out of this, of course, if we have the full mapping of the individual's preferences, then we can map this into a utility function, right? You know this from your micro classes. But in most of these cases, preferences are defined only for the consumption goods, right? This is not necessarily the case, right? So you can define certain elements of individual preferences, and these are possibly best be understood as parts of culture. Now, one thing is risk preferences, right? Another thing is altruism. You know what altruism is? When when a person is not fully selfish, if some other people's utility levels enter some person's utility function, then we call these preferences altruist. Okay, Türkçesiyle diğer kam. So uh, altruism matters because we have our children to care for, our parents to care for, our friends to care for, and our fellow citizens to care for, and so on and so forth, right? So there may be some altruistic preferences, and that type of preferences is a part of culture. So one is risk, the other is altruism. The other, yet another is time preferences. So when I say risk preferences, what I mean is how tolerant we are against risk, right? When I say time preferences, how patient we are in uh, delaying consumption, for instance, okay? And how much we do care for others. Okay, and there could be other, as we discuss along, as we go along, we're going to discuss other stuff that partially characterize preferences. Now, one important element which is usually underlined separately in contexts is trust. Okay, so what is the situation in terms of people trusting others in the society? So that's usually very important, and we're going to discuss why. So let me pause here because we have less than 2 minutes now. So if you have a quick question, let me address it. Otherwise, after the break, we're going to continue. Okay, so let's take the break. So my time is about 1:38. So let's meet at 1:50. Is that good? After 13 minutes?
Yes.
All right. Okay, let's meet at 1:50 and continue.